In today's video, I have to survive 100 days in a nuclear winter. I have 3 objectives. First, craft full Predatious armor and a Noxious Greatblade. Second, defeat the Mutated Warden. And third, eliminate the ancient Dreadnaut, commander of the Mutated army. Can I survive in this nuclear wasteland? Stay tuned to find out.
Another day at the plant, eh?
Sure is. I've got to go fix the electrical tower today on the northern end.
I've got to go take a look at the cooling pipes. Apparently there's some sort of leak, so I'll talk to you later.
All right, see you later. Time to go to work. What's that sound? Whoa. I must have barely gotten out of the blast radius. What the heck could have caused that explosion? On day 1, I was already off to a rough start. I could feel the effects of the radiation poisoning giving me nausea, hunger, and poison. These effects were caused by the leftover radiation from the nuclear blast. Luckily, I got away in one piece. But on my way out of the radiation zone, I ran into some strange-looking silverfish. Not really sure what the heck these were, but I made sure to get myself a weapon so I could take them out. On the way out of the swamp, I found myself some pigs in a bamboo forest and got myself some stone tools. It had already struck night, and I found some strange-looking zombies. To be honest, I wasn't even sure if they were zombies. With a closer look, they were definitely zombies. Maybe these ones were affected by the radiation? After I thought I defeated the second one, it stood still and then exploded. Well, that wasn't pretty. For the rest of the night, I took out some horses for leather, took out a few sheep, made myself a bed, and slept in a cave. On the morning of day 2, I ran into one of those weird-looking radiation zombies, which wasn't affected by the sunlight. After taking out a pig and going to gather some more, there was some sort of mutated pigs. It looked like they were straight out of a horror film. They immediately started charging at me. These pigs definitely wanted revenge. Luckily, they weren't too hard to kill, but after killing one of these pigs, it fell over and exploded out those weird-looking silverfish that I saw before. Maybe they weren't silverfish at all. Maybe they were actually parasites. Were they infecting all the animals? I went over to a few cows to check, and surely enough, they were infected cows. These ones didn't seem to hit so hard at first, but then I got hit for 5 hearts all of a sudden. I needed to back up to eat, and I used the water to my advantage to take them out. It seemed like these parasites were infecting all the animals and wildlife around. I needed to find out if there's any way to stop this, but I was gonna need resources first. I got a bunch of leather, and then after looking for a couple days, I found what looked to be a good spot for my base. So I climbed up to the top of the hill, chopped down some trees, and immediately started to work on building my base. I wanted to build my base on top of a hill so that we could avoid a lot of the potential wildlife that was in the other forest. Now that I knew there was an infection going around, it was probably best to be isolated from everything. So after setting up a bare bones base, I went exploring on day 5 and found what looked to be some sort of communication tower. When I got closer, I realized someone was on top of the tower. They seemed to have a lab coat on too. Once he saw I was coming, he jumped off the electrical tower using his elytra to make his escape, disappearing into the distance. I went up to check what was on the communication tower, and there was a chest, but there was only a little bit of redstone. Who the heck was that guy? So for the rest of day 5, I gathered a bunch of seeds, chopped down a bunch of trees for some wood, and headed back to base. On the morning of day 6, I finished up the roof with some birch stairs. After finishing that, I decided to go out and look for a cave, and on my way, I ended up finding a village. When I got a little closer, infected villagers started running straight at me. So I tried attacking them, but it hit me for 7.5 hearts. Okay, this is something I was not gonna mess with for now. Before I left the village, I borrowed some of their carrots, and on day 7, I finally found myself a cave. I ventured down into it, found myself a bunch of iron, smelted up all that iron, and crafted myself full iron armor, found some gold, and then found a mine shaft, and got immediately attacked by a cave spider. So I made myself a sword, took out all the string, and lit up the cave spider spawner. After mining through all the string, I started getting attacked by something in the distance. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but when I got closer, it was a massive spider. So I went up to hit it, and it did 4.5 hearts of damage. It entangled me in its web, and I couldn't move. I had to just hold my shield and tank all the damage. After absorbing all the damage from the spider, I managed to escape the cobwebs. I made sure to block it off, and after hitting it once, it exploded immediately, and out came a ton of those parasites. These parasites just seem to be infecting everything, not just friendly mobs. So I decided to get the heck out of that cave, and after about a day of travel, I made it back to my base. For the next couple of days, I decided it was time to make some farms, planted down some seeds, and lured over some pigs and made myself a little pigsty. On day 15, I decided to go exploring again and get some more food, and after getting a bunch, I ran into some infected wolves. Kinda doubt those were gonna be tameable. After taking out those 2, I went back into the forest and fought another rabid wolf. This thing did insane damage, 5.5 hearts, and I was in full iron. After taking it out, something else had spawned. It looked like the wolf's head, but it had spider legs. What the heck? I was pretty creeped out, so I just made a run for it and decided to go somewhere somewhere else. I entered some sort of dry-looking biome, and then I saw a gigantic infected base, so I decided to run the exact opposite direction. Eventually, I ended up running into a village and found some strange-looking flower-type mob. It had some weird-looking blocks around it, so I went to get a closer look. I got hit by it, but I actually one-shot it. But outspawned some weird-looking parasite. It hit me a couple of times, but I was able to take it out fairly easily. I went to look at the blocks, and they were called infested blocks. I made sure to take them all out, borrowed some of the bookshelves from the village, and even found some diamonds in the armorsmith's chest. Maybe that flower was spreading the infection. I wasn't really sure, but if I ever saw any of those again, I'd make sure to take them out. After arriving back to my base on day 19, lo and behold, there were parasites all around my base, and I saw another one of those weird-looking flowers. So I took out the first few parasites that rushed at me and made sure to go straight for the flower. The infestation spread a lot around my base. I went around and took out the rest of the parasites, went to go check on my pigs, and my pigs were infested as well. Unfortunately, I had no way of turning them back into normal pigs, so I had to take them out. It spawned another one of those heads. The pig head jumped over me, but luckily I was able to take it out with one shot, and then decided to take out all the infested blocks. After getting rid of the infection, I decided it was time to relocate. If stuff like that was happening over here, I need to find a much safer spot. So I left a sign marking my house, and for the next couple of days, I searched for a new location. I ended up finding a taiga biome and found a nice little isolated lake. So I decided to make this little lake my new home. I then bridged out to the middle of the lake and started working on my new base. So for the next couple of days, I finished off building my base, and on day 26, I decided to go out exploring and get some more food. After collecting some beef, I started to cross a river and saw something in the distance. It looked like a gigantic house. Was this Painful's base? So I carefully entered the front door, and there were flying mobs in the room. Wasn't really sure what the heck they were, but I killed one. I noticed there was the brewing room, so I decided to borrow some of the brewing stands. And when I walked up to one of those mobs, ended up exploding with parasites. Well, now I know to take those out before they explode. I took out all the parasites and went upstairs and took out the other flying parasites. In the back room, there seemed to be some massive looking mob. I went up to hit it, and it blew up, poisoning me and spawning a bunch of parasites. So I made a run for it. I regened my health, went back in, and took them all out. I then went to the back room, and there were these weird looking flying mobs. I took the first one out, and the second one shot some sort of thing at me that poisoned me. They also made weird sounds. After going back downstairs, I realized there was a sign that said Dr. Diver. I didn't think much of it though at the time. So I decided it was time to go mining. I ended up finding a ravine. I mined a bunch of coal and iron, and then I swan dove down into a water-filled ravine. I swam to the end of the ravine and ended up finding a pocket of diamonds. I also found some gold, found another vein of diamonds after crafting myself a diamond pick, and I got pretty lucky and found another 8 vein of diamonds. So I crafted myself a diamond chestplate, axe, and boots. I ended up getting a little bit of obsidian. After mining for 5 days, I decided it was time to head back to base. But on my way back, I found what looked to be another one of those flowers. There was also another weird looking flower next to it. It shot me and broke all of my armor in one hit. How strong was this thing? It also spawned a bunch of infected cows and infected zombies. I ended up running away, putting on my spare iron armor, and I went straight for the source of the infection. And after a few hits, I took it out. Afterwards, I made sure to clean up all the infested blocks as well. I made it back to base on day 37, crafted myself an enchantment table and placed down the brewing stands, crafted myself a new diamond chestplate. On day 38, I decided it was time to explore. I also gathered some animals along the way and ended up finding a base. When I walked in, everything was infested. There was a bunch of chests too. This must have been Painful's old base, but it looked like it got taken over by the infection. There was also a sign that said you messed with the wrong dock. I was hoping Painful was still alive. After exploring for a couple more days, I found a gigantic tree in the middle of nowhere. When I got closer to it, there was a bunch of these flowers all around it. So I started to take them out one by one. There seemed to be some sort of hub of infestation around this tree. When I walked over to the other side of the tree, there was a way in, and inside there were even more parasites. It was more of the same type, so I took those out and climbed up the ladder. There was even a little bit of parkour. Being an expert in parkour, I completed it pretty easily. There was also a chest, but there was nothing in it. And when I went up, there were these 2 massive looking parasites. Luckily, they were pretty slow, so I was able to keep them back pretty easily. I hit them a bunch, but eventually I took them both out. I continued my climb up the tree and found a chest with some gold and bones in it. I climbed up another staircase and finally made my way to the top. And there was a chest waiting for me. But when I walked in, a massive parasite started to attack me. This thing had teeth and was super tall. I managed to keep blocking its hits and got through the doorway. And using the doorway to my advantage, I kept on hitting it. It managed to hit me once, getting me down to 3.5 hearts. So I ate some food and it ended up exploding. Well, I guess I did enough damage to it. I opened the chest and there was a Predatious chest plate inside, which gives increased range damage. So I went back down to the bottom of the tree, and to prevent anything from spreading from the tree again, I made a flint and steel and burned it to the ground. On the way back home, I ended up finding a wolf and taming it. I'm gonna name her Bunquisha. And on the way back to base, Bunquisha and I took out an infected zombie. And don't worry, I made sure to heal her back up. On day 48, I made it back to base and sat Bunquisha down next to my bed. So for the next 3 days, I collected and planted down sugarcane around the lake, created created another wheat farm, lured some cows into my base, chopped down a bunch of trees, created a cow pen connected to my base, and then on day 52, I started working on a chicken coop. I wanted to get a bunch of feathers so I could have a lot of arrows later on. I then created a second story for an enchanting room and enchanted all my armor. And on day 56, I was gonna go out and chop some more trees and notice somebody was there. It was the same exact guy. We saw him on the communication tower earlier, so I started to chase him. I was just about to catch up to him, but then he placed down a boat and started to boat away. So I quickly crafted a boat and started to chase him for the next couple days. I wanted to catch this guy and figure out why the heck he was at my base. I kept on his tail pretty much the entire time, and when I was just about to catch up to him, I went over a tripwire hook and fell into a trap. There was some sort of weird looking dog parasite thing, and it got me down to 1.5 hearts. I took that one out, I turned around and realized there was another one right behind me. So I blocked up with a ton of dirt, regen my health, and took out the other parasite. I quickly pillared back up, mined out of the trap, but he was nowhere to be seen. I decided to try and take a chance, made a boat, and started to boat out for the next few days until I found land. Once I got on the beach, I found another one of those plant things, but this time there was a 4-legged parasite charging straight at me. I used my shield to block its first attacks, but it did 2.5 hearts in one hit. It hit me again and then broke my shield immediately after. So I ran away towards the ocean, ate some food, and used the water to my advantage. And I managed to take out this 4-legged beast. So I went back over to the flower, took it out, and then cleared out all the infested blocks around it. After doing that, I decided it was time to return back to base. And on day 68, I made it back, and then got a much needed rest. From day 69 to 70, I farmed all my crops, mined a bunch of gravel for flint, and crafted some arrows. I then enchanted a bow, and then enchanted a bunch of books. From day 72 to 73, I got a bunch of wood so I could expand my base and create a third story. This is basically just gonna act as a watchtower for the top of my base. I then crafted some golden apples, and then decided it was time to go exploring again, and ended up finding another weird looking house. I approached it carefully, entered the front door, and entered what looked to be a lab. The brewing stands didn't have much in them, but then when I went up to the second floor, there was a massive spider looking parasite, and it knocked me straight off the balcony. So, using the stairs to my advantage, I landed a hit, ate a golden apple, and then after 2 more hits, I took out this massive parasite. After taking it out, I realized it dropped a Noxious Greatblade. This thing was really strong, and we were gonna test it out later. I also realized there was nether warts here, so I took all the nether wart and soul sand. I went up to the top floor of the base, and realized there was a chest with Predatious leggings in them. Yoink! I then went back down and realized I missed a chest. It had a book and quill in it, and the book read, Experiment number 13. The test subject has been relocated to a radiation lab in the Alps. This experiment could help us reach our goal faster than expected. Signed by Dr. Diver. What the heck was that supposed to mean? I ended up going back down the stairs and found some blaze powder and nether wart and started heading back to base. I was gonna find out what this meant if it was the last thing I did. So I enchanted my pants and made myself a nature's compass. This was going to allow me to track down the biome that he mentioned in the book. So I tracked down the Alps, and after spending 4 days heading to the coordinates, I had finally found the radiation lab. I started by clearing out all the infectious plants with my Noxious Greatblade, 2-shotting every single one of them. This weapon was extremely strong, so it helped me a lot. Once I cleared out all the plants, I went into the back room, went down the railroad, and started getting shot at by somebody in the distance. I wasn't sure if it was him, but I drank a strength potion just in case, and charged down, and it was in fact the guy that we saw before. This must have been Dr. Diver. He was heavily equipped too. We started exchanging blows, and I was already down to 5 hearts. He got me even lower, so I had to back up and eat a golden apple, and then I started shooting arrows at him, and he shot back with his gun. I ran at him and started hitting him over and over again, and he started to run away as well. I started to block his shots with my shield, went in for another hit, and defeated Dr. Diver. After I exited, I noticed there was a chest, and this one had a Predatious helmet in it. I knew I needed to investigate the building, so I went up, climbed up a ladder, and found a rocket at the top. On the side of the rocket was a map saying Dr. Diver's nuclear warhead. It seemed to lead to some sort of nuclear facility. So I followed the map for the next couple of days, and ended up finding it fairly close to the radiation lab. I started to approach it, mined some blocks, and ended up hearing some explosions inside. I went in to see what was going on, and saw what looked to be a massive parasite. I started to use my bow, and dodge the parasite's attacks. I started to land as many bow shots as I could, and then I heard some strange noise coming from the parasite. I kept on bowing it, but then when I looked up, massive pods started to rain down from the sky, unleashing tons of small parasites. Well, now I know what that sound means. I started taking out the small parasites one by one, and started to bow the big parasite again. I made sure to drink a strength potion, and started to bow it down as much as I could, and I realized one of its limbs fell off. That must have meant it was getting weak. I kept on bowing it down, and another limb fell off. The parasite started raining from the sky again. I ate some food to regen, and parkoured over to avoid some of the parasites. Even more parasites began to rain down, but I decided to rush the giant parasite. So, using my Noxious Greatblade, I hit it 3 more times, and defeated the giant parasite. I ended up almost dying to the small parasites, but luckily got away. I regen my health, went back in, and got the Predatious boots from the giant parasite. parasite. I then spent the next 3 days returning back to base, enchanted the rest of my armor, and decided to go back to ground zero, where the nuclear explosion went off originally. I thought if I could find Painful anywhere, this is where he would be.
Painful?
Man, I'm glad to see you again.
Likewise, I'm happy we both thought of coming back here now that the radiation has died down.
Let's get the heck out of here. If you guys made it this far, make sure to check out Painful's video in the description. We both had different objectives and fought very different bosses. If you'd like to further support us, consider subscribing to our Patreon. There's a lot of benefits you can receive, and it would support us greatly. Take care, everyone.